for everyone, so that anyone who hasn't been able to make this session will hopefully will then be able to watch it or listen to it back. So welcome everybody, thank you very much for joining us. This is Open Drama's second web chat of our new monthly series. There are a lot of people here today, so please do use the chat pane to make contributions, and if there's any questions unanswered at the end of the session, you'll be able to contact us at opendramauk@gmail.com. The PowerPoints and the audio recording will be sent out to those on our mailing list first, so please feel free to share those among your contacts and do encourage them to sign up to Open Drama UK. Excuse me. If you don't know, Open Drama UK are a network of teachers, theatre educators and industry experts set up to advance, improve and benefit young people through drama. We are not a subject association, we are simply a network. We currently have 28 regional champions, our 29th is in the offing. So you can find out who your closest champion is by emailing us, and we'll let you know. And also, if you're interested in becoming a champion, there are some really key areas we'd like to break into. No one in Scotland at the moment, for example. Just appointed somebody in Cumbria, which is very exciting, and also down in Cornwall and Devon. So in those extremities of the country particularly, we'd love to hear from you if you're interested in helping us. You can sign up for Open Drama on the website if you haven't already done so, and that's where you can also find any resources that we talk about in this webinar now. I'm out the wrong way. There's a few things. I'll send out this PowerPoint afterwards, things that we've done if you're not aware of who Open Drama are. We've done lots of things since launching in May 2019. We're very excited that we now have a mailing list of over 1,600 people, which is far more than we imagined, envisaged when we started just over a year ago. And coming very soon, we are planning to produce in the next 24 hours our guide to the Ofqual consultation. We won't be responding to the Ofqual consultation as an organisation because, as I say, we're not a subject organisation, but we would encourage you to read it and obviously to respond on your own behalf. There's also a handy resource to help support your planning for the new year in 2020-2021, which I'm embargoed at the moment from telling you what it is, but it's very exciting. News on our 29th regional champion, I can tell you that's in Suffolk, which is very good as well. There is an event for NQTs and trainees in conjunction with Manchester Metropolitan Uni on the 23rd of July. You can find out more information on that on our social media. And then also coming up soon, information on how you can help Open Drama keep up, hopefully, what you think is good work. So I'm going to stop sharing of the screen here now, and I'm going to hand over to Sandra Allen, who has been given a list of questions in advance that people sent in that she's going to talk us through and tell us a bit more about her take on what's happened since she did an AQA webinar for us on the 26th of June. Sandra, thank you very much.
No problem, thank you. First of all, I've just realised you can still see some of the birthday celebrations going on in the background. It was my daughter's 18th yesterday. So, right, so I'm going to start with the first question, which was, can you please explain what you do for AQA? And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the consultation, the process, what happens, what we do, what you need to do, etc., etc. And then I'll look at some of the questions, but I will just say now a lot of the questions are based around the outcome of the consultation. Don't want to repeat myself what I did in the webinar and say I sound like a broken record to respond to the webinar, the consultation, but that may be the case. So my role in AQA, just over 3 years ago, Ofqual introduced that anybody who has sight of an exam paper cannot talk to teachers. So AQA went through quite a big change and we formed different departments. So we have an assessment design team that work on question papers solely, working with associates. They're obviously embargoed from working with teachers. And then you have a curriculum team, which is where I sit. And we don't have any sight of exam papers or pre-release material until they come out, or on the day of the exam, we get them an hour before so that we're able to digest them while an exam's going on and be able to respond to questions that may come in after the exam. My particular role is to champion my subjects. So that's drama, dance, art, music, media studies and performing arts. And there's a small team of us. There's myself, there's Paul Stover, he's a drama specialist, drama and English specialist, and Lucy Clark, who is a media specialist. Now our role is to listen to you guys, take away anything that you're saying, try and support you in the best way we can. provide, come to your centres, work with companies like Open Drama, and basically be as visible as we can. And my main aim is that AQA is the go-to board for all the creative arts. We also work with stakeholders, so a lot of my work is done with higher education, also with organisations like National Theatre, etc., in just seeing that we can get the best provisions and resources created for you. So a lot of the time, it may be that there might be something better that an organisation could produce than AQA could. So we might work with them in collaboration to do that. So hopefully that answers what I do. At AQA, we have a teacher services team. They're dedicated to the arts. Now they will answer sort of first line calls that come in. So generic questions they've been trained on and they can answer. So who's your NEA, all of these sort of things. They can do that. If they cannot answer that, they get escalated and Lucy's the next point of contact. And if we feel that we can't respond, and most of the time we can, if there's something, we can then go out to the associates who have worked on the exam papers and anybody who the right person is to respond to that question and get a response for you. So hopefully that sums up who I am. AQA at the moment are currently all working from home, apart from a very small team of core people that are working on this summer 2020's process. And the sort of standardization of all of that, working in conjunction with all the other boards and being directed by Ofqual. So it's the first time, it's a very different award to what we would normally do. Gradually people will start returning to the office. So I think we're hoping for potentially a full return by the new year. And obviously that depends on what happens with the pandemic. And anything else that goes on. But our priority is to make sure that the people that need to be there are there. We also now have the outcome of the autumn consultation. So we will know that there obviously will be an exam paper available for GCSE, AS and A-level. There is no non-exam assessment components, and that also includes component 3. So even though it is an exam, it's still classed by Ofqual as non-exam assessment. So the resits will only be led by the written paper themselves. So therefore we will have an awarding process go on for the autumn term. I think key dates for exam dates are just being released now. So you should have those in the next few weeks. And I think one of the really important things to say here about the autumn series is that this series is for students that are not happy with their results from summer 2020, so they can retake them, and also for private candidates who were entered in summer 2020 but had to withdraw because there wasn't enough evidence from their affiliated centre to be able to continue to be entered. So the answer to the question from the webinar about the summer 2020 papers, now these will be used for the autumn term, so they'll then be available on EAQA once the exam has been sat. So that's the autumn series, that's who I am. Is there any particular questions regarding those two before I move on to where we're at with the summer series? I am struggling to see the chat again, so Catherine, I'm going to ask you if there's anything in there.
Yeah, no, there's nothing come in since you've been talking. Please feel free to type in the chat pane and I'll feed those questions to Sandra as we go through, but there's nothing new there. But could you just clarify for me, Sandra, there? So will it be an option for teachers who perhaps have been working a lot on the written exam to enter their new year 11s into that autumn, or will that not be possible?
No.
Okay.
No, they will have had to have had an entry in summer 2020. So Ofqual, I think, confirmed that in their, I think it was last, sorry, I'm getting very confused on when consultations were launched or not. So when they provided the results, they were very clear that it could only be private candidates and students who want to resit. So current year 10s and 12s can't enter that, no.
Lovely, thank you. And there's a question here from Carolyn who says, if a student sat the autumn exam, would their result then be based 100% on the exam and the teacher grade would become irrelevant?
Okay, so AQA have only just, so we see the results of the Ofqual consultation at the exact same time as you guys do. So we are now working on exactly how we're going to award the grades and how we can do it fairly, particularly with subjects like drama, because obviously students perform very differently in the non-exam assessment. So once that is literally what I've been talking about all morning with colleagues. So as soon as I have the answer to that, I'll share that with you, but I'll also share it with Open Drama to send out as well, on how we will fairly award, considering they won't be sitting 2 NEA components.
Okay, thank you.
That's okay. Right, so I'm going to move on to the consultation that was released yesterday. So as I said, AQA saw it the first time yesterday as well, as all exam boards. So our process is very similar to what we would recommend you do. Our process is going to go through each of the points. So I will do this with all of the subjects that I look after, and I'm going to rely on my senior associates as well for their input, and we will provide feedback to Ofqual on each of the points that they've raised. And particularly with drama, there is lots of points and it's quite complex. Whereas something like art has been quite simple. So this is quite a bit more detail to do with drama. We will be sort of going back to them, giving our point why we don't agree with something, or we do agree with something. And then also, if we don't agree with something, we'll be looking at what our solution would be to that. Now, all the exam boards will do that as well. We will potentially have chats with each other. We'll work with, we'll come, if there's something we all strongly agree on or disagree on, we may have a discussion about that before we submit. But just so you know, that the time frame is really short for this consultation, which is quite right, because we need answers really quickly, as you do. So potentially it will be less about interboard discussions and more about what we as an exam board, and working with our senior associates, what's going to be our feeling. So we'll respond. We'll encourage everybody. Obviously there is power in numbers to respond, and be as detailed as you can on any point that you think you disagree on, and why you disagree on it, how this will impact your students, whether there are things like you feel that there is still too much content. One of the things I think it's come quite apparent to me over the consultation at the moment is that the written exams are not really being touched as much. So there's quite a lot, as I said, as we all know, that was quite a lot with drama. So once we provide our input to that consultation, as all exam boards and yourselves and anybody else, Ofqual will then take a period of time to collate that information. They'll work with their own subject experts internally to decide on anything being changed. And I couldn't tell you whether they would change things or not. That really is coming from Ofqual. And then they'll release their final outcomes of that consultation, which I would hope wouldn't be I would hope would be very quick, because obviously we all need answers. Then once we have that, all exam boards will have to do exactly what Ofqual has directed us to do. So I'll take an example there. If Ofqual have said that we will accept monologues in devising, which I don't think I know AQA don't accept at the moment, we will amend our marking criteria, and we will, as directed by Ofqual, allow for monologues to be for 2021 included in for assessment. So all boards will do exactly the same thing. I'm just going to give you another example of something that happened with Autumn. Now this happened with Art and Design. So they have said that we have to produce a new exam task. And now all the awarding organisations are now working together to agree a submission date so that it's fair and that every awarding organisation is doing so the same thing. So once we have the outcome of the consultation, there may be quite a lot of things that we will need to speak to the other exam boards about, make sure we're all doing the same thing, and make sure there may be questions that we may have to go back to Ofqual if we want sort of clarity on. But for the moment, whilst the consultation is going on, I can't share with you at this point what we're going to go back on that consultation with, mainly because obviously, as I said, the consultation came out yesterday, and we've now got to work very hard and very quickly to identify each of the points. So where we've got to at the moment is we're starting our conversations. These will go on, and we will start to submit our responses to each of the qualifications from next week to Ofqual. And I would suspect, particularly with drama, that all boards will be submitting something quite similar, having had lots of discussions with Marie, Paul, and Wynne. We're all very much thinking about things in a very similar way. And lots of people think that the exam boards are in competition, and actually we're all coming at it from we want to do what's best for the student and what's right, and also what's manageable for you as teachers. So when you raised a lot of points on the webinar, if you were on my webinar, a lot of those points are being taken into account now, and forming part of our response to Ofqual as well. So it was really important for us, and I know it felt quite a bit of a waste of time, if I'm honest, that we went ahead and run it. I think I just want to say, I do appreciate how a lot of you may have felt, but we need to start a series of webinars, and that's the one place to start. Having not known when the consultation was going to be released, we didn't want to cancel it. But so we continued as we were, but we will obviously, once the outcome has come through, we will then run another webinar and talk about all the resources that we're going to need to create to support you for the 2021 series. I think, apart from answering your questions, which I will go to, I think I probably covered everything for the 2021 consultation, and you may have a lot of questions. So Catherine, are you able to pick up anything before I move on?
There's just a couple here come in. So can you just clarify for us, if a student sits the written exam in the autumn, that technically then gives them two results, the one for the written exam and obviously their centre assessed grade. Will the higher grade count, or will the most recent grade count? The higher grade. The higher grade. Lovely, thank you very much. So we've also had a question about the Component 3. There are people planning to do the Component 3 next term. Do you know, will there be a visiting AQA examiner available therefore for the window normally from November, or will it be more centre assessed and AQA moderated?
Okay, so as it stands, the requirement is that we do a visit. Now, discussions have been going ahead with is it going to be possible from November? So if we do continue with visiting exams, we may start the visiting exams, and this is not concrete, and this is our suggestions at the moment and our thinking, and I'm being very open and upfront with you all, is that we're probably looking at a window starting from January. However, if we then find that there are centres that really need or require a visit in November, then that November, December, we could look at doing that with our senior examiners, so we don't have to do standardisation, which is done face-to-face, and obviously we'd need to consider social distancing ourselves in running those standardisation meetings. So there's possibilities there. I am just looking very quickly at the Ofqual documentation. I don't. Right, so they have said permit both NEA components to be marked by the teacher and moderated by the exam board, or marked directly by the exam boards, and also permit exam boards to assess performances. But in terms of what we do, I think there will be the outcome from the Ofqual consultation will decide on what we do with Component 3. It may also be that we'll look at things like, do we examine Component 2 as well, to give you more time, if that's something that there feels that there's a need, and we can cope with the volume of marking that will be needed. So there's lots of unknowns, but what I can say now is, now with the consultation out, those unknowns, we're going to have answers in the next, sort of hopefully within the next month or so.
So for those teachers who are maybe planning a kind at the moment to have do their C3 exam in November, would you say to them, advise them just to sit tight and wait and see what happens, or would you advise them to let the board know?
I would advise if you let us know, because the more that I know, I mean, there's quite a big assumption, and I think this is probably a bad assumption at the moment, that people won't want to visit in November. And if we know that people do want to visit, I think that will probably change our thinking. So if you do let us know, that would be great.
And then what email? Just the drama, the AQA drama address?
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. If Carl, if you could pop that address into the chat pane, or Ella, that would be brilliant. Thank you. Question about the 5-year rule for live productions.
Okay.
Anything to add to that?
Right. Okay. The 5-year rule following the webinar. This is the main reason the webinar was the reason it was done. So it isn't an Ofqual condition, but when we reform a specification, what we do is we have to provide an assessment strategy for Ofqual, which is in effect a contract of what we will do, and Ofqual will either accept. So part of the accreditation process is also our assessment strategy, which is a document of many pages of exactly what we'll do. Now, in our accreditation process, the 5-year rule was in our assessment strategy, and that's part of how we were accredited. So since the webinar, what I have done is I've emailed Ofqual to advise them that we're going to remove the rule permanently. So not just for 2021, we're actually asking to remove the rule permanently from GCSE, AS and A level. We've requested Ofqual get back to us within a week to let us know if they're happy, because we're informing them. We don't have to ask permission, we're informing them that we want to make a change. When we ask permission, when we make a complete change to assessment, we have to wait for their decision. This particular one, because it's only in the assessment strategy, we've had to inform them. So we've given them a period of time to respond. And then the plan is that next week on the 9th of July, we will be able, fingers crossed, to email everybody and say that the rule has been removed for the lifetime of this specification of all levels.
I think you've just made every drama teacher's birthday and Christmas all come to once.
So I just want to say now, if the webinar hadn't have happened, that wouldn't have happened. So
oh, brilliant.
I just have to say, there is something, lots of smiley faces. Yeah, so I don't, the last inform I had to do with Ofqual was for a media qualification, and we did that about 4 weeks ago, and we were able to get out to centres really quickly. So I think I said on the webinar it was an Ofqual rule, so I do apologise about that, because I didn't actually clarify how the assessment process worked, but it is a rule that we've committed to Ofqual. So we've now, as I say, asked them to remove it. If we don't hear from them, we will email out on the 9th of July. If we do hear from them and they have any issues with that, we will probably, what I can do actually to make it easier is I can let Catherine know, and then obviously we'll try and push back on that, and we'll work with them to understand why they have an issue of that. But I don't think they will, because it's not a rule across all exam boards.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you, Sandra. I know there's lots of very happy people. Quinn doesn't understand, but we'll explain later, Quinn. Quinn, I'm going to come back to your question about foreseeing the change. And I think that, Sandra, that's kind of come up a little bit already in some of the questions we've been asked. So I'm not ignoring that one. I will come back to it. But Carl says, when do you think AQA will publish revised assessment documents?
Okay, so as soon as I'm going to base this on what's happening with autumn, because that's the best way. So as soon as the consultation is concluded and all exam boards know what we need to do, or specifically if we need to amend assessment mark schemes, then I would envision that will be our priority. It will be our priority, and we would hope to turn it around very quickly, within sort of a couple of weeks is what I'm hoping, depending on the volume, particularly if something's teacher marked. That is really important, that you will need that marking criteria very quickly. If it's examined, it may not be as quick as, because you don't need to sort of see it to mark it. So the answer is very quickly.
Lovely,
Hopefully
thank you.
a couple of weeks.
So he's come back. He said, so before September the 1st, he's asking.
I will say yes, as long as the consultation doesn't get confirmed on the 31st of August.
I think that's fair enough, Carl. We can't pin her to something too much here. And then Carl is just,
yeah,
we won't hold you to that. He says fair enough.
We know that you need it. We are poised, and our senior examiners are poised, and now we've had sight of what it is. A lot of that work will happen now anyway, so it won't be this big shock that we have to change our marking criteria. So first of all, our priority is respond to the consultation. Then we'll start looking at actually each of these individual points. If things don't change, then how will we manage it? So we'll probably have the majority of the work done anyway.
Okay, thank you. And just while you were talking there has been just another couple of questions. So actually, I think because obviously the questions people submitted in advance are were important, but they were sent in before the consultation. So obviously there are some of them which perhaps are not one. So I will turn to these questions in the chat pane first. So Lizzie asked earlier about the portfolio in the new guidance and what's meant by that.
Sorry, I'm just trying to be diplomatic.
Yeah, right.
No, I know exactly. I'm actually just
I thought it was the question I worded.
No, because it's come up on every single subject. We don't know. I can't. I think that the thinking behind this is that for a student who's not able to actually perform their devised performance, they can submit a portfolio instead. So if you can't physically film anything, they can provide this portfolio. It has kind of come, as I say, it's come up in a lot of subjects, thrown us a little bit because on one hand, it does feel that is a lot more work for teachers, and this is about, the reduction of work. On the other hand, if a student can't perform the devised component, this potentially is quite a good solution to that. You could go back to this on Ofqual and really, really put your thoughts. This is really important on this one. Your decisions, your consultation or responses, sorry. I'm losing my voice. I've talked a lot in the last 2 weeks, so I apologise. I think the most important thing is here, your response could be something along the lines, and I'm not here to influence you in any way, and I'm not sort of giving you AQA's answers because we haven't got them yet, but they could be, is component 3 something that, why are we assessing it? Can it not be removed because you've got component 2, or the other way around in terms of content? I mean, we would have to look at it very carefully in terms of assessment objectives to make sure everything is covered. So it is a really interesting question about the portfolio, but I think their intention is so that students who are not able to film, and thinking about disadvantaged students who are not able to film, could produce this portfolio instead. If it was teacher marked, we'd have to provide something to help you standardise on it.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering whether portfolio was also being used a little bit as a kind of catch-all phrase, because every board calls it something different, working notebooks, kind of like that. I wonder whether it was also they were just trying to come up with a word which kind of talked to everybody.
It seems they've used the same wording across all subjects, or a very similar wording across all subjects. So I do know it's there in dance, I do know that it's there in media, it's not there for art. And it's not there for music, but it's very similar wording for those. So again, we're going to look at this particular point. Well, actually, we're going to look at everything quite very closely, but this particular point, will be up for discussion with us in the board.
Okay, thank you. So Claire has asked about how then the portfolio would differ from the devising log, but I guess the answer to that is, well, until we understand what Ofqual mean by this portfolio that will take the pace of a performance.
Yeah, I mean, that would. I've actually started to make notes myself, and that actually is one of my own questions back for Ofqual. Is this in replace of? Actually, is the devising log going to give enough information that you don't need to change and have this portfolio? So it is really hard for us at Exam-Board, and I'm not sort of pleading, sympathy or anything like that, but we are in a very similar situation to you. We see this at the same time as you. We've got to digest it and we've got to respond. And I will be raising things like that.
Okay, thank you. Carolyn's asked, could you explain what you understand by the idea in the consultation of doing one or more extract for components 3 at A level?
Let me go. I've got all of the consultation notes in front of me.
So we understand the proposal is to do 1 key extract instead of 2 at GCSE, but what do you think the A level idea means?
Right, I think, again, my own opinion at this stage, I think the intention is that 1 is fine. If teachers want to do more than 1, then that's okay. I think it's trying to allow for as much flexibility as possible.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
but I would say that the minimum, I would say it's similar, that the minimum is 1, with the flexibility to be able to do more if you wish.
Okay, brilliant. I think that, Caroline, I think so. Just to clarify that a little bit. So, for example, I've started with my A level doing component 3 this term because we've looked at the sort of the extract 1 and 2, and they've actually performed both of those, which and we videoed those. Could we then put those? Do you think we could then put those forward as
Yes.
the performance? Right.
Yeah.
That's that you mean by flexibility.
As it stands at the moment, then the answer, as it stands, if this consultation went ahead, yes, you could.
Great. Oh, right. That's very helpful. Thank you. So thank you for that question, Caroline.
What would be interesting with it is obviously we couldn't disadvantage any students. So I think the thing that all exam boards would need to look at is that it's a fair assessment whether somebody submitted 1 or somebody submitted 3 or 2. And a lot of the things I've been thinking about in terms of our response to this consultation is what we don't want to end up with is lots of different cohorts doing different things and how we would manage that. And that might be sort of basing our response to that question.
Okay, good. I'm gonna skip, I think, because there's a couple of bits here that I appreciate people might want answers to, but I'm also aware that people have sent questions in previously, and I don't want to not cover those that are important. So Claire, I think we've already covered how would the portfolio differ from the devising log. We're not really quite sure about that at the moment, whether they do or not. So Quinn says, have you got any idea why there are more changes to the A level than the GCSE, i.e. 2 texts removed from making theatre with A level?
No.
More content possibly to start with?
Potentially it's more content. So Ofqual, and I'm assuming this, Ofqual have their internal advisors that support them. It could potentially be that a different advisor worked on across the 2. It could potentially be that obviously there's more content. We're thinking about a different cohort of students. They are at A level rather than GCSE. So sorry, I can't answer that one.
That's okay. Sandra, I'm going to ask you to now turn back to those questions that we sent to you previously. And I appreciate that they were before this consultation document came out, but if you might want to just spend some time going through for those, and then I will come back to the chat pane with any ones that we've missed or any other questions that people want to put in there while Sandra goes through the questions that were sent in.
No problem.
Thank you, Sandra.
And, I think that you're probably going to guess, and I hate this. I hate saying I don't know the answer, and it is really the one thing that goes against everything I've ever done in my job is not being able to support people. But I hope I've explained it why, how the process works. So if we just look at the questions, do I think the exam format will change? Well, we've seen the Ofqual consultation on what they're suggesting the change is. If you're not happy, respond to it, please. As I said earlier, there doesn't look like there's much change to the written papers. And just a sort of caveat as well, sort of anything they talk about non-exam assessment will always consider component 2 and component 3. What contingency plans are being considered for component 2 if social distancing is still required? That's been covered in the consultation. Again, they've talked about the monologue potential there, and as I said, if that is an option, we will amend the mark scheme and have that with you very quickly. What support will be given to teachers with any changes made to content? Okay, so we have now committed that anything that's changed, we have committed to create resources for the autumn term. For anything that you need. So again, that question on the webinar was really important, but it was also very difficult because you didn't know what the changes were going to be. So I think I'm not going to compare ourselves to Pearson's because I might say, but I know they created a social distancing webinar, which was absolutely brilliant. But that had the caveat that they didn't know. We're going to look at producing something now. Once we have the exact answers, we'll then produce something very similar to that to support you in how you can do all of these things. Sorry, I'm just reading it. Do you know if AQA will alter requirements for devising component? I think I've covered the next question. And if there's only one student in the class, allow device performances to be one student. So again, the answer to that would be if the Ofqual consultation is confirmed as it is, then yes, we would allow one student. Can you AQA provide any support or guidance with regards to how teachers can best structure or teaching for year 13 in light of COVID? This is really, really difficult, and I don't think there is a best order to start with. It probably depends on what you've already completed, and of course, whatever you suggest, whatever's going to come out of in light of the consultation. So in normal circumstances, most centres do component 2 in year at first, and then after with component 3. Okay. We use Knee-High as a practitioner for devising and have already started this work. I'm just wondering if examining work in 2021, examiners are likely to be open-minded and more generous when awarding marks, if not all elements of the practitioner are available. So when we standardise our examiners or moderators, we use work. I'm not sure I could say the word more generous, but they would, obviously, if that's something that needs to be taken into consideration, then they will take that into consideration. I mean, so I've put together this long response to this, and as it stands, there's no plans changes for component 2, but this was all before. I think we're going to have to wait for the outcome, but no examiner or moderator would disadvantage any student, particularly in 2021. I hope that answers that one. There's only a few more. So I'd like to know about ideas for adapting as spec changes and ideas of how the autumn term might be approached for GCSE and A-level drama. That is exactly a resource that we're going to produce and get that sent out before the 1st of September. So that's one I can commit to now. It might have to be a sort of first draft if the consultation isn't confirmed, but that's exactly the sort of thing that we're going to work on. If there's any possibility of introducing design-specific mark scheme, at the moment that would be a no. I can appreciate what you're saying. I don't think it's going to be appropriate or that we could do that for 2021. I have spoken to my assessment team regarding 2022 onwards, and it's something they're going to take forward for then and look at and speak to our senior associates and see the best way to take that question. So it's really, really valid, and it really is important that you kind of share these things with me, because if I don't know, I can't do anything about it, and the 5-year rule is an example. Somebody's asked, will the 2020 paper be released? I think I said that earlier. That will be available just after the October series, the autumn series. In light of the article printed in the TES about very anxious about the subjects, I think, and I'm sorry, I was on leave yesterday, I think my understanding is that the Department of Education launched yesterday to say that there will be a full suite of qualifications. So I think that's I think that's absolutely okay. I do know though that there are a lot of centres that are taking quite a different approach, and I don't endorse that, but it is something that obviously senior leaders will need to you'll need to sort of challenge with senior leaders, and if there's anything I can do with that challenge, I can't influence them, but if there's anything I can provide in support, i.e. statistics, we have an amazing sort of research team that can sort of provide statistical reasons why a subject like drama is really, really important.
And so, and to back that one up as well, because Open Drama, that's exactly the kind of thing that we are here to help support you with as well. So if you are in a centre where you are worried about your provision being cut and you need some help and some support or some suggestions of what you can be saying, do please also contact us. Those are the questions that were sent in advance, which is really good. We've still got some time here to go through quite a lot of questions that have now come into the chat pane. So I'm going to try and get through these as many as I can in the next 20 minutes and we'll see how we go. So Claire says, I have done extract 1 and 2 with my year 12, but workshop style rather than polished performance. We are about to start the reflective report from extract 2. Could we essentially drop extract 2 and do extract 1 and create extract 3 to performance level for the exam?
As it stands, as the consultation has been released, yes.
Lovely, good.
Nice short answer.
Perfect. It's only going to be that easy.
With the caveat of obviously you're probably talking about sort of September onwards, so obviously just keep an eye out when they do the outcome of the consultation.
Brilliant, thank you. Trudy says, is there a risk that the reduced length of performance disadvantages students in terms of showing range, develop skills, character, the narrative journey, for example, an individual contribution in group work, especially for nervous students who may need to warm into a performance?
In terms of their performance, I absolutely agree. It could potentially do that. In terms of how we would mark it, we would be looking at taking that into consideration because we're marking a very different length. The idea of the reduction of the time was quite an interesting one. Quite a few people sort of said we're not sure if that would actually support, but remember it's just still a minimum time, so you still can go and do as much performance as you feel would need to be there. But that is something we will take into consideration if people do stick to that minimum, to ensure that students aren't disadvantaged because of it.
Okay, thank you. Quinn's wondering whether you've seen the possibility in other subjects of offering more options within the written exam, for instance, offering more than one extract per set text in the GCSE.
Yeah, I've seen that, and I think, put it on the Ofqual consultation and respond to that. I think that's a really good. We're with drama and also dance there too, that there are possibilities of we're thinking around, would we suggest that as well?
Okay, lovely, thank you. Sarah's got a comment here. She says, we do OCR, so maybe different for AQA, but she worries that some people on the drama forums are suggesting we ask for a reduction in the practical-based assessment, i.e. removing a unit without suggesting a change in the weighting. Many people are frustrated about the weighting of the written exam when the new syllabus comes out, so maybe a request for open book written exam would be a way forward if no reduction in the written paper requirement. I mean, we do have an open book in AQA, and it has to be a clean copy, but it is an open book. But yeah, I guess I take the point is that if we have less practical, that weighting is then changed as well. I don't know, Sandra, if you've got any comments.
Yeah, I mean, what we would do is we would look at scaling the marks. So if, say, I'm just going to use art as an example because they have removed a component. So we would scale up the marks to become the right amount. So it wouldn't be that we would add more emphasis on the written paper. We would scale up the marks in the NEA that we have.
So this is following on from that, another question about weighting. Are we as a drama community in danger of further reducing the practical element and weighting in the future if the practical is reduced for next year? But that's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's I mean, what's really important is that the changes that Ofqual are suggesting are for 2021 only, and certainly, as an exam board, we're not endorsing that these are purely for one set of circumstances. There is also, once this is all over and done with, I think there's going to be quite a discussion around year 9s as well, because they are going to be impacted in some way. So I think that's going to be sort of the next way forward. I would not endorse any reduction in the NEA weighting ever. Actually, I think it should be more, but that's my own opinion.
Thank you. Hattie said, my students were 6 weeks into rehearsals of their A-level component 2 and had chosen Frantic Assembly as their practitioner when we went into lockdown. Would you suggest delaying component 2 when we return in the hope that social distance relaxes later on in the year?
Depending on the outcome, God, I do sound like a broken record, and you can see my face this time, so you can see me just kind of banging my head against literally a brick wall. I think I would wait. I would really wait to see what comes out with the consultation. Obviously, if you can still do it whilst, and there is a social distance measure in place, and you can still do it, then why not? There's a lot of talk at the moment, though, that year groups won't be having to social distance, I believe.
Yes, that's a bit. There is apparently some of the conversations around that. I think there's a couple of things sort of with my own drama hat on. I'm actually I am going to delay doing my devised until January. I'm not in the lucky position of my year 10s are going into year 11. I've actually done it. We actually managed to get it done before, just by pure luck and chance. So I am going to delay it on the off chance that things do get a bit easier. Having said that, there are some amazing ideas out there that people are using. I know Quinn Golding, who's with us today, put an absolutely gorgeous picture on Twitter of using shadows to make it look like people are touching, because their hands are touching in the shadow, which I thought was really beautiful, really lovely idea. I was going to actually ask you, Sandra, I'll be cheeky and get in here my question, about whether that would count as a non-exam candidate if someone was doing a monologue, yet you had a shadow that somebody else had to put their hand into the light. That'd be all right.
No,
it would allow to. Okay, great, good. I
Yeah.
thought that would be a lovely idea. There's also Go on, sorry.
No, all I was going to say is I think from sort of my feelings, the way that sort of Gavin Williamson and government were talking yesterday, I really do feel that there won't be a social distancing. But obviously, who knows what's going to happen with the pandemic over the next few months.
Yeah. Good. So Carl says, it seems that Ofqual suggests there should be less practical work, but the same amount of written work. Is this a fair assessment? That's a horrible question, Carl.
That's their opinion. Is it fair? Yeah, that's really horrible, Carl. This is being recorded. Maybe I'll message you on Twitter, Carl.
Yeah, maybe that might be better.
I mean, to be fair to anything at the moment for 2021, it's probably the hardest year to work out what we're going to do. I think 2020, this year was kind of easy. Once the decision came out, everybody knew. Whether it was the fairest way, that's another thing. But yeah.
Carl does say he's sorry to be blunt.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. I feel really on the spot. No, I mean, you know, if AQA don't feel it's fair, we will be putting that in our response to the consultation.
Thank you, everyone. And someone says typical Carl. I'm going to come back because actually I was just going to come back to another thing Quinn asked earlier, but actually he's just put something else in. It's a really good point that Naomi's made about, you know, the worry is about how schools are interpreting the distancing. Obviously, different schools will be different, and you will have to obviously take guidance, and of course what you're comfortable doing and what your students are comfortable doing. So I think there are sort of alternative suggestions. It's really good what Sandra's talking about. I think about, you know, putting out guidance out there for us as to how we might structure. I know Open Drama are also looking at this at the moment and thinking and trying to take some kind of sense of what our teachers are doing and our network are doing to give people alternatives of what you can do so that everybody is comfortable and can work within their particular guidelines as well.
One of the things that came through on quite a lot of the webinars, so I ran all of the creative arts ones, is that there came quite a theme that a lot of people are not allowed to teach their subject till January. And I mean, if that's the case, and you know, tell Ofqual, because they don't know that.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, thank you. That's really useful. Quinn has said he's noticed that the reference to the audience has been removed from the filming requirement. Do you think cameras would be allowed to move? Would editing be a possibility to allow for social distancing? He's thinking of filming outside or location for safety.
Yeah, we're in the process. We will release it when the outcome's out, but we are in the process of redoing the recording requirements to allow for all of these things. Clever use of technology or whatever use of technology, I think we're going to be really flexible on.
Brilliant. And someone said, could you clarify for A-level, can students potentially produce only one extract in total for their final performance and to be written about in their reflective report, or is it advised that at least 2 extracts are explored, one to be workshopped and one to be examined, performed? I understand that all 3 might not need to be completed now.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's as it stands, the requirements that they released yesterday, it can just be 1.
Brilliant, thank you.
But be aware that that could change.
Yes, and that's it. You've got to read the information and be very careful. But
yeah,
I've got nothing new come in, so I'm just going to back up to Quinn put something in earlier that I skipped at the time about devising monologues and. Trying to find it now, Quinn. It was about what you felt about the effect on how would you foresee changing a performance element, e.g. a monologue in devising, and the resulting effect on coursework, e.g. collaboration in section 2 because of the 2 being interlinked.
This is a huge one for all exam boards, and I think we all feel quite similar. I mean, from discussions, I thought we all felt similar, just in case. It's going to be a really interesting one, and it's going to be looking at the marking criteria that there currently is, and there's going to need to be quite a lot of changes because of exactly that. I think it's probably one of the things that is going to be hardest to do out of this whole consultation.
Okay.
And make sure that we get the marking criteria right.
But I guess that's sorry, something just happened. My window cleaner's just turned up. I nearly just jumped out of my skin there. I thought my curtain had fallen down, but it's my window cleaner's. It's frightening. So sorry if you can hear kind of noises in the background. Claire says, in a similar vein to about the shadows and the use of cameras and things, if a student was to appear on a video during a performance, would they be counted as a non-assessed candidate and therefore not allowed?
So currently, yes. But I think for 2021, I think that's something I'm going to put forward that we allow. Brilliant. And a really good point.
So, and she says, in a similar vein, could a candidate be assessed via video? She has a German student who is unlikely to return in September, but she could film an aspect of her performance. So would that be, again, something you would allow?
Yeah, that again, that's again something that we're looking at. One of the things that we will potentially be raising is that they need to allow us to do video assessments if obviously we can't visit centres and that sort of thing. So I hope the answer to that would be yes.
Okay.
Actually, sorry, can I just go back? In that instance, because they're in Germany, we would allow it.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because they can't get back to the school, and I guess with all of these sort of individual problems, there's I would maybe you would say email the board and let them know in advance.
Yeah, I think individuals. Yeah, absolutely. So individual circumstances. I mean, there's a lot that we're going to be working with our special considerations and special requirements team, because obviously there's going to be a lot of times where students may go off or schools may shut, and how we manage all of that. So any sort of individual circumstances, email them in, and we're always going to do what's right for the student, and that's why I can confidently say yes to that particular case, because if you emailed that in, that's what we would do.
Brilliant, thank you. Trudy's asked about obviously the option to watch streamed and recorded theatre is obviously very good for teachers, but obviously I know Trudy comes from a theatre background herself, so there's obviously lots of problems at the moment with theatre groups and companies in a lot of trouble. So she's asking, could there be something included in the guidance to encourage schools somebody else put a question in it, jumped up. Could there be something included in guidance encouraging schools to bring theatre artists into schools as an addition, so that students can still gain access to theatre professionals through workshops and performances? Is that something AQA could put in?
Yeah, that's a really good. Yeah, that's absolutely. I mean, obviously we need to allow the fact that a lot of people aren't going to see it, and it is a sort of that is definitely an Ofqual requirement. So they've already put on their consultation, modify the live performance statement to allow this. We actually want to say we're actually going to go back and say actually we've already dealt with this, but we want to say that encourage people to still see what they can.
Yeah, and obviously I know there's also difficulties there. I mean, I work in a private school and my budget is completely frozen, so I've gone from having a very enviable budget to now literally not being able to do anything like that at the moment. So there is obviously individual schools that have got issues and problems surrounding that as well.
I think the most important thing about this is about seeing live performance is just in terms of, if you're worried about it, don't worry about it.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So we're about to perform the GCSE devise pieces before lockdown and have completed a large part of the portfolio with the devising log. I fear the students may have forgotten the performance. Not that I like this idea, but to reduce what needs completing, could we in theory not perform it and just submit the portfolio or devising log?
So this is actually their idea of the portfolio. So I think sort of in terms of what Ofqual are suggesting in terms of the portfolio, a good response, that is a really good example of how you could respond to the Ofqual consultation. And if they say yes, then we would allow it.
Okay, so that again, in our responses to the consultation, that's why I said this at the beginning, just to reiterate, Open Drama aren't a subject organisation, so we won't be responding as an organisation ourselves. We will just, as individual teachers that make up that network, will respond and encourage as many of you as possible to respond, and then you can put those individual problems and individual situations in there. Quinn has said, what do you advise in reference to practitioners? Obviously singing, instruments, physical contact is important in many. Would you suggest to go with someone that doesn't have that, so to change practitioner, or will there be dispensation for not including those elements?
I think there would be dispensation. I think we wouldn't want to sort of, prohibit certain practitioners. It's something I'm going to have to sort of take away with me, but I would encourage my sort of assessment team to look at sort of allowing it.
I think it would be useful, for AQA as well. I know this is something that has come up, pre any of this shenanigans that's going on now. It would also be useful for teachers to have some kind of guidance from the board about what they're expecting to see for practitioners. Yeah. Just COVID notwithstanding.
Yeah, and also just on another note regarding practitioners, we are actually looking at revising the whole list. But don't panic by that. It wouldn't, but in terms of additions and sort of supporting more diversity and things. So
yeah, that would be good, and some sort of help in kind of what an examiner is looking for would be a really useful thing, I think. There's quite a lot of questions all coming in at the end. We've only got a couple of minutes left, so I'm going to try and get through as many as I can. And if I don't get through more, I'm really sorry. Do you think there'll be any changes to the demands of the written paper in light of the amount of time lost? I think
I think that would be covered in the grade boundary. So when we get to awarding it, if there's an apparent shift in ability, then the grade boundaries will reflect that.
And on the written paper, Hattie said, and I totally agree with this, is that 3 hours for A level has always seemed quite horrendous. There's very few, I think there's very few other subjects that have such a long paper at A level. I know we're not alone, but it feels like a little bit we are. Is there any way we might change to 2 papers at all, ever, anyway?
It's really interesting because I do know that one other board has 2 papers. They might all have, sorry. Really interesting because we've had lots of feedback for, I've seen Hattie saying please, lots of feedback for people liking the 3 hours and lots of feedback for people wanting 2 papers. Let me take that back to the assessment team and let me see what they say.
Yeah, I mean, so
it wouldn't happen for 2021. No. Can I just say that it will not happen for 2021?
But we've got to remember that there is life after 2020 and 2021.
Yeah, no, so, and absolutely, that's what
it's easy to forget that sometimes.
I just want to clarify. If I could take this forward, and if there would be any changes, it would be from 2022.
Yeah, and I think that's important. That perhaps, I mean, that's certainly something I agree. Dan's just put in about, 3. We've got people with extra time. Nearly 4 hours is a huge amount of time for them to sit there. So these are things that perhaps we should be putting forward to the exam board, just generally, because that is something that I think a lot of us agree with.
But do remember, sort of timetables are sorted out very, very early, and also we write the questions. So we're just starting the 2022 papers now. So this is why I want to sort of take that one back with me very quickly. But it also involves sort of like. Actually, timetables wouldn't be a problem because other exam boards there are 2 slots, so that wouldn't be an issue.
Brilliant. So Carolyn is just saying, is it then a good idea for teachers to film rehearsals and run-throughs
yes.
in the absence of day? I think that's something that would be a very good idea. It's also good anyway because if you show it to the students, they can see what you've been trying to say to them for weeks. They can see it hopefully for themselves. So I thought I had a lot of questions, but luckily it's lots of people agreeing that the exam is too long. A couple of requests. Would like Emma Rice and Paper Birds, please. I would back up both of those, as a couple of people put those in. Those are our practitioner suggestions. Anyone that isn't an
already put those to everybody. Already put quite a lot of them through from the webinar. So thank you.
Oh, good. I must admit, when I very first got to, and I like to think I do know a few practitioners. But when I very first read that list, it read like an answer list from Pointless. I was like, I know 5 of these, and I kind of thought I wasn't too bad, but it made me feel really stupid looking at that list. There's lots of people saying thank you. This has been really useful, and so thank you very much. There's lots of people. Splendid. We would like splendid and vamos, please.
Oh, I like Vamos. I just want to say, I do want to apologise that I'm not sort of giving you direct answers, but I hope I've sort of clarified why I can't do that, which I probably wasn't able to do so much on the webinar.
No, I think it has been really useful. I know there's lots of people saying it's really helpful, really useful. So thank you ever so much, Sandra. And we really appreciate your time, particularly since there's obviously something only came in yesterday. Do talk while I get the PowerPoint back up.
Yeah, and I do want to just remind, on the 9th of July, so whatever day that is next week, I've actually lost any sense of what day it is. We'll be announcing, hopefully, that the 5-year rule, and as I said, I didn't go for it for just 2021, it was a removal from the whole qualification.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. We are just coming to the end now. So I want to say thank you ever so much for Sandra for your time. I found that really helpful, really useful. I hope everybody did. To let you know that next month's Open Up to Drama web chat on August the 7th, we'll be tackling the socially distanced production with Grace Lewis and Sharon McInnes, who both come up with really innovative ways of doing a production when you're still having to socially distance. So anyone who'd like to contribute to that, do let me know. I will be putting out details once this one's done. I will be thinking about that. We've got a really interesting program of web chats coming up for you, but this is the next one. Anything today, thank you so much for being with us. Please sign up for Open Drama if you're not already, to join our mailing list. Our next MailChimp newsletter comes out next week. Don't miss it. Do check it in the junk folder as well. All our stuff, it's really frustrating, but it does unfortunately go in there, so it's very rude, but do check in there if you think you should have had something from us that you haven't. And there's our email address that you can get in touch with us if you have any suggestions for us, or if you'd like to be involved in any way, or you need any help, then please do let us know. Sandra, once again, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate your time. It's been really useful.
Catherine, I know you're finishing, can I just ask a very quick question?
Please do.
I'm not on any of the Facebook groups, and to be fair, I don't want to be. No offense.
What do you say?
But
Sensible.
it would be really useful. But it would be really useful for me if I could have a contact of an admin, so that things like the 5-year rule, I mean, obviously we will send out an email, but a lot of people don't pick them up or can't see them or not in school. So if anybody would like to email me and say they're admin on those groups, and I could email information to be posted, I'm more than happy to do that if you'd want me to.
Oh, that's really lovely, Sandra. I can, yeah, well, I mean, if we're all, most people here, but if anyone sees anyone asking about that, and lets know if anyone knows the admin. If anyone here is the admin of one of those groups, you might not want to say it publicly. That'd be lovely.
But I'm more than happy if they want to email me, and I can just email them stuff. Whether you post it or not, it's completely up to the admin. But I just thought it was another way of me reaching out to you guys.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Lots of lovely comments, Sandra. Do have a look on the web chat to see lots of nice comments about being open and honest, and a credit to AQA. So there we go. So
thank you.
That's lovely. Thank you ever so much, everybody. I am going to stop recording now, but thank you very much for coming, and we hope to see you at a web chat or an Open Drama event very soon. Thank you very much. Take care.